The leather of the steering wheel felt cold under my palms as I pulled into the gravel lot at 4:07 p.m. The tires crunched slowly beneath me. The sound echoed sharper than it should have. I turned off the engine and just sat there for a second. The late afternoon sun hit the windshield at an angle. It made everything inside the car feel too bright, too exposed. I could smell the faint trace of Emily's favorite perfume on my jacket. She gave it to me 3 years ago, said it made me look less old. I adjusted the cuffs of my suit. Navy blue, tailored in 2018. Cost me $2,400. I remembered the tailor's voice clearly. "This one will last you 10 years, Mr. Holloway." I stepped out of the car and felt the heat rise from the pavement. It had to be at least 82 degrees. The air carried the scent of fresh flowers from the ceremony, arch roses. White. Too many of them. I could hear soft piano music drifting from inside the venue. It was slightly off rhythm, like someone was rushing it. I walked toward the entrance slowly. Each step felt heavier than it should have. I told myself it was just the heat, just the long drive, not the feeling in my chest. I reached into my inner pocket and touched the envelope. Thick, clean edges. Inside was a check for $250,000. A wedding gift. I had written it at 6:30 that morning. I stared at it for almost 10 minutes before signing. Not because of the amount, because of what it meant. I thought about 2007, the first time Daniel sat across from me at my kitchen table. He was 23 years old, nervous, sweating through his shirt. He kept tapping his fingers against the glass. My wife, Margaret, poured him coffee. I still remember the smell of it. Dark roast, slightly burnt. "I just need a chance, sir," he said. "I can make something real." Margaret smiled at me that day. She always saw the good in people before I did. I wrote him his first check that afternoon. $80,000. Seed money. I told him it was a loan. We both knew it wasn't. I walked closer to the entrance now. 2 staff members stood by the doors. Black suits. Earpieces. One of them looked at me, then looked again. Recognition flickered across his face. "Good afternoon, sir," he said. "Can I help you?" I nodded slightly. "I'm here for the Holloway wedding," I said. He hesitated, just for a second. Then he glanced at the list in his hand. "Name?" he asked. I straightened my shoulders. "Richard Holloway," I said. He scanned the paper slowly. Too slowly. The piano music inside grew louder as the doors opened briefly. I caught a glimpse of white chairs. Rows of them. At least 150 guests already seated. He looked back up at me. "I'm sorry, sir," he said. "I don't see your name here." I felt something shift inside my chest. Not sharp, not sudden, just a quiet adjustment. Like a door closing somewhere deep. "That's not possible," I said. My voice came out steady. Too steady. "Check again." He ran his finger down the list one more time. Slower this time. More deliberate. "It's not here," he said. "Do you have an invitation?" I let out a small breath. "I'm her father," I said. He blinked. Once. Then glanced toward the second guard. "One moment," he said quietly. The second guard stepped closer. Taller. Broader shoulders. He looked at me like I was a problem to solve. "Sir, we've been given a very specific guest list," he said. "If your name isn't on it, call her." I interrupted. "Call Emily." He hesitated, then reached for his radio. "Front and trance," he said. "We have a situation." The words sat in the air between us. Situation. I stood there in the heat. The scent of roses suddenly felt overwhelming. The piano music inside stopped. Just for a second. Then started again. A different song this time. I watched the glass doors. Waited. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat now. Slow. Controlled. I told myself this was a mistake. A simple oversight. Nothing more. But something didn't sit right. Not with the list. Not with the hesitation. Not with the way the guard avoided my eyes. This wasn't confusion. This was instruction. I had seen this before. In boardrooms. In negotiations. When someone follows orders they don't fully understand. I thought about the numbers again. $18.7 million over 19 years. Every transfer documented. Every investment structured. I never asked for recognition. I didn't need it. But this was different. This was removal. I felt my grip tighten slightly around the envelope. I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I just stood there and waited. The doors opened again. This time, Emily stepped out. White dress. Hair pulled back. She looked exactly like her mother at 32. Same posture. Same eyes. For a moment, I forgot everything else. "Dad," she said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "You shouldn't be here." I blinked once. Emily, I said, there's been a mistake. She shook her head slightly. No, she said. There hasn't. I felt something inside me shift again. Deeper this time. Heavier. I looked at her carefully. Studied her face. Tried to find hesitation. Doubt. Anything. There was none. Just certainty. Clean. Final. I lowered my hand slowly from the envelope. The air felt hotter now. Harder to breathe. I could hear footsteps behind her. Someone else approaching. She took a small step forward. Close enough that I could see the tension in her jaw. Then she looked straight at me and said, Dad, you're not invited. Please leave. I did not answer her. Not right away. The air felt different now. Thicker. Harder to move through. I turned slowly and walked away from the entrance. The gravel sounded louder under my shoes this time. Each step felt deliberate. Measured. I did not look back. Not once. The parking lot stretched out ahead. Rows of cars. Black. White. Silver. All lined up like nothing was wrong. Like this was just another wedding. I reached my car and opened the door. The heat inside hit me immediately. It had to be over 90 degrees in there. I sat down and closed the door behind me. The silence felt heavy. The faint smell of leather and dust filled the space. I placed the envelope on the passenger seat carefully. My hand lingered there for a second. Then I pulled it back. I stared straight ahead through the windshield. People were walking toward the venue entrance. Laughing. Smiling. Adjusting ties and dresses. No one noticed me sitting there. No one stopped. That told me everything. This was not a mistake. This was planned. I leaned back into the seat slowly. My chest felt tight. Not pain. Pressure. Controlled. Familiar. I had felt this before. In 2015. The Chicago deal. When Andrew Collins sat across from me in that conference room. He was 41. Sharp. Confident. Too confident. The room smelled like stale coffee and printer ink. I remember the hum of the air conditioner. Loud. Constant. You are overestimating your position, Richard, he said. I watched his hands that day. He tapped the table twice before every lie. That was how I knew. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I let him finish. Then I slid the documents across the table. 3 pages. Signed. Dated. Final. His face changed in less than 3 seconds. Control disappeared first. Then confidence. Then the smile. I learned something that day. People only act certain when they believe you have no leverage. I looked down at the envelope again. Same weight. Same thickness. 3 documents inside. Signed in 2006. I had not touched them in years. I kept them for one reason. Not for protection. For clarity. I needed to see things clearly when the time came. I exhaled slowly. This was not about emotion anymore. This was structure. Sequence. Cause and effect. Emily did not make this decision alone. She followed something. Or someone. Daniel. It had to be Daniel. The guest list. The guards. The coordination. That required planning. Time. Intent. This was not a moment. This was a strategy. I reached for my phone and checked the time. For 12 p.m. 5 minutes since she said those words. 5 minutes since everything shifted. I unlocked the screen. No calls. No messages. That was expected. Silence can be a tool. I placed the phone down on the console. Then picked it up again. My hand hovered over one name. Marcus Thorne. I had known him for 27 years. Since 1997. He never asked unnecessary questions. He never reacted emotionally. That was why I trusted him. I did not call yet. Not yet. Timing mattered. Always. I needed to understand one thing first. I opened the envelope slowly. The paper inside felt smooth. Heavy. High-quality stock. I pulled out the first document. The signature at the bottom caught the light. My name. Dated June 14th, 2006. I flipped to the second page. Ownership structure. Percentages clearly defined. 62%. Mine. I already knew that. But seeing it now felt different. Sharper. Real. I placed the document back down. My mind moved through the numbers quickly. Total investment. $18.7 million over 19 years. Every transfer documented. Every asset traceable. Daniel built his company on that foundation. But he never replaced it. He never bought me. Out. That was the mistake. I closed my eyes for a second. Just 1 second. I felt something shift inside me again. Not anger. Not grief. Alignment. Pieces falling into place. This was not rejection. This was exposure. He believed I had no position left. That meant he had already moved everything into structures he controlled. Accounts. Vendors. Contracts. All tied to the company. All tied to ownership. I opened my eyes and reached for my phone again. Before I could tap the screen, it vibrated once. A message. Unknown number. I stared at it for a second before opening it. One sentence. No name. No greeting. Just information. Primary wedding account ending in 4427 was frozen at 4:11 p.m. Total balance, $12,400,000. I started the engine at 4:13 p.m. and pulled out slowly. The gravel shifted under the tires again. This time I did not notice the sound. I turned right onto the main road. The venue disappeared behind me within seconds. The sunlight felt harsher now. The road ahead stretched empty for almost half a mile. I drove without turning on the radio. The silence inside the car felt clean, focused. I checked the rearview mirror once. No one followed. No one called. That confirmed it. Everything was already in motion. I drove exactly 1.2 miles before pulling into a gas station. Old place. Faded red sign. 2 pumps out of service. The air smelled like gasoline and hot asphalt. A low buzzing sound came from the lights above. I parked near the side of the building. Engine still running. I stepped out and felt the heat again. Stronger now. The ground radiated it upward. I walked toward the small storefront. The glass door stuck slightly when I pulled it open. Inside, the air felt cooler by at least 10 degrees. The smell changed immediately. Burnt coffee. Cheap cleaner. Something artificial. A radio played quietly behind the counter. Country music. Off-key vocals. I stepped toward the counter and placed my phone down. The cashier looked up. Mid-40s. Tired eyes. He gave a small nod. You need anything? He asked. Black coffee, I said. He turned and poured it without asking anything else. The cup felt warm in my hand. Solid. Real. I took a sip. Bitter. Strong. I welcomed it. I needed something sharp. Something clear. I checked my phone again. The message was still there. Frozen account. $12,400,000. Timestamp. 4:11 p.m. That was 2 minutes before I started the car. That meant one thing. Someone had already executed a move. Before I even acted, I leaned slightly against the counter. My mind moved quickly now, faster than before. This was no longer about reaction. This was alignment. Sequence already underway. I thought back to 2012. My friend Thomas Green, age 55 at the time. We sat in his office in Boston. Late November. The room smelled like wood polish and cold air. He showed me a case. A hostile takeover. Control is never what people think it is, he said. It is timing. It is paperwork. It is who signs first. I remember the exact way he tapped the folder. Twice. Slow. Deliberate. If you wait too long, you lose everything, he said. I did not forget that. Not once. I looked at the phone again. The unknown number. No name attached. That meant it came from a system. Or someone who did not want to be identified. Either way, it was accurate. Numbers like that do not appear by accident. 12.4 million. That was not a random account. That was operational capital. Active. Immediate use. Wedding expenses. Vendor payments. Liquidity. If that was frozen, something else had shifted. Something deeper. I took another sip of coffee. Slower this time. My thoughts settled into place. Daniel believed I had no position. That was his first mistake. He believed he had already secured control. That was his second. But this message, this timing, that meant there was a third player involved. Or a delayed mechanism already in place. I considered Marcus again. 27 years. He never acted without instruction. That ruled him out for now. This came from somewhere else. Or from something I had already set up without realizing it. I stood there for a moment longer. The hum of the refrigerator behind the counter filled the silence. I could feel the structure forming now. Clear lines. Clear paths. This was not chaos. This was exposure. I picked up the phone again. My thumb hovered over Marcus's name. I did not hesitate this time. I pressed call. The line rang once. Twice. Then connected. Marcus, I said. My voice steady. Even. I need you to confirm something. He did not respond immediately. That was his habit. He always waited half a second longer than necessary. Go ahead, he said. Account ending 4427, I said. Was that you? A brief pause. Then a shift in his tone. Subtle. Controlled. No, he said. I felt the answer settle instantly. No surprise. No confusion. Just confirmation. Then we have a sequence already triggered, I said. Looks that way, he replied. I nodded slightly, even though he could not see me. Prepare the documents, I said. All three. Another pause. Slightly longer this time. You are sure? He asked. I looked down at the envelope in my hand. The edges still sharp, untouched by hesitation. Yes, I said. It is time. I ended the call without waiting for a response. I walked back toward the door slowly. The bell above it rang as I pushed it open. The heat hit me again, harder than before. I stepped outside and crossed the lot. The sky looked brighter now, almost too bright. I reached the car and opened the door. The envelope was still on the seat, exactly where I left it. I picked it up and sat down behind the wheel. I placed the documents on my lap carefully. One by one, I read the signatures again. The dates: June 14th, 2006, July 3rd, 2008, March 19th, 2012. Every detail aligned, every clause intact. 62% ownership, controlling interest, absolute authority. I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a pen. Heavy, metal, the same one I had used for every major contract in the last 15 years. I did not rush. I did not hesitate. I signed the first document, then the second, then the third, each signature clean, final, permanent. I placed the pen down and closed the folder slowly. Then I picked up my phone again. I opened the secure email Marcus had sent years ago. I attached all three documents. I entered his address. I pressed send at exactly 4:19 p.m. In 2020, I stood in Daniel's office on the 14th floor, and I remember the smell of new carpet and printer ink as he avoided my eyes when I asked about the $2.3 million loss. I did not press him that day. I chose silence. I chose patience. I stepped on the gas at 4:20 p.m. and pulled back onto the road. The car moved smoothly. The engine barely made a sound. I drove exactly 0.8 miles before turning into a small parking structure across from the venue. Concrete walls, low ceiling. The air felt cooler inside, at least 15 degrees lower. The smell changed again. Damp cement, oil stains, old water trapped somewhere unseen. My footsteps echoed as I stepped out. Hollow, repeating. I parked on level 2, spot number 27. I could still hear faint music from the venue across the street. It sounded distorted now, like it was coming through water. I closed the car door and leaned against it for a moment. My hands were steady, my breathing even. That told me everything I needed to know. I was no longer reacting. I was executing. I looked down at my phone. 4:22 p.m. 3 minutes since I sent the documents. Enough time for Marcus to receive them. Not enough time for full processing, but enough to begin. I walked toward the edge of the structure. The sunlight cut across the opening in sharp lines. Bright, blinding at certain angles. I could see the wedding venue clearly from here. White tents, glass walls, movement inside, people still seated. No visible disruption yet. That meant the effect had not reached the surface. Not yet. I leaned my forearms against the concrete barrier. The surface felt rough, warm where the sun hit it, cool where the shadow covered it. I watched the entrance. The same doors where Emily stood 5 minutes ago. I replayed that moment in my mind. Her voice. Calm. Final. Not hesitation. Not confusion. That was learned behavior. That was reinforced belief. Daniel had shaped that. Over time. Over years. I knew exactly when it started. 2020. The failed expansion. The $2.3 million debt. The rejected bank loan. That was the turning point. That was when he stopped asking and started taking. He did not just want money. He wanted position. He wanted to stand in a room and be seen as the only one who built it. I had seen that before. Too many times. I stayed there for another minute. Watching. Measuring. Nothing moved yet. No visible change. That meant the disruption was still internal. Accounts. Transfers. Vendor confirmations. I turned and walked back toward my car. My shoes echoed again against the concrete. The sound followed me. Sharp. Consistent. I opened the door and sat down. The air inside was still warm. I placed my hands on the steering wheel and paused. This was the point where most people hesitate, where they question the sequence, where they try to reverse what cannot be reversed. I did not feel that. I felt clarity. The structure was complete. The sequence was already in motion. There was no benefit in delay. I picked up my phone and unlocked it again. One missed call. Unknown number. I did not return it. Not yet. Timing still mattered. I tapped Marcus's contact again. The line connected immediately this time. Richard, he said. No greeting. No delay. Status, I said. Documents received at 4:20 p.m. he replied. Processing began immediately. I nodded once. Execution window? I asked. A brief pause. I could hear typing on his end. Fast. Precise. Initial transfers initiated, he said. Full control reallocation within 7 minutes. I checked the time again. 4:23 p.m. That gave me a clear window. I leaned back into the seat slightly. My eyes stayed on the venue across the street. Any resistance? I asked. Not yet, he said. They do not see it coming. That confirmed the final piece. Daniel believed he was secure. That was the weakness. That was always the weakness. I ended the call without another word. I placed the phone down and stepped out of the car again. The heat outside felt sharper now, the light harsher. I walked back to the edge of the structure. Slower this time. Measured. Controlled. I reached the barrier again and looked down at the venue. This time something had changed. Subtle, but clear. Movement at the entrance. 2 staff members speaking quickly. One of them looking at a tablet. Then back toward the inside. I narrowed my eyes slightly. Focused. The sequence had reached the surface. I could see it now. The first signs of disruption. Small. Contained. But spreading. I stayed there. Watching. Counting seconds. This was no longer about possibility. This was confirmation. The structure had shifted. Control had moved. Ownership had returned. I felt no satisfaction. No relief. Just alignment. Precision. This was what the numbers said would happen. Nothing more. Nothing less. A figure appeared at the entrance suddenly. Daniel. I recognized his posture immediately. Shoulders tight. Head moving quickly. Looking for answers. Looking for control. He stepped outside and spoke sharply to one of the staff. I could not hear the words. But I could. See the urgency. The break in composure. That was new. That was real. I watched him for exactly 10 seconds. Then I turned away. I did not need to see more. The outcome was already defined. I walked back to the car one last time. Opened the door. Sat down. Placed both hands on the wheel. And without hesitation, I shifted the gear and drove straight out of the parking structure toward the main road without looking back. I drove for exactly 3.6 miles before turning into a quiet diner on Route 17. The sign flickered above the entrance. Half the letters were dim. It was 4:31 p.m. when I parked. The sun sat lower now. The light came in sharp through the front windows. I stepped out and felt the heat fade slightly. A breeze moved through the lot. It carried the smell of fried oil and old asphalt. I pushed the door open. A bell rang above it. The sound was dull, worn down from years of use. Inside, the air felt cooler. Not clean, just less heavy. The smell hit me immediately. Coffee, grease, something sweet, probably pie. The floor tiles were black and white, faded, cracked in places. A waitress stood behind the counter, mid-50s, hair tied back. She looked up briefly. Sit wherever you like, she said. I nodded and walked toward a booth near the window. The seat creaked as I slid in. The vinyl felt warm from the sunlight. I placed my phone on the table. Face up, silent. I could hear the low hum of a refrigerator behind the counter. A fork hitting a plate somewhere to my left. The quiet murmur of a television mounted in the corner. I leaned back and let my hands rest on the table. Flat. Still. I had not shaken once. Not yet. That mattered. I looked outside. Cars passed slowly on the road. Normal pace. Normal life. Nothing reflected what had already started. That was the nature of structural change. It happened underneath first. I thought back to 1998. My colleague Victor Langley. We were in a small office in Denver. 3rd floor. No air conditioning. The room smelled like hot paper and dust. He handed me a file and said, "If they think you are out, let them build on it." I remember the exact way his voice sounded. Calm. Certain. He had been. Right. Every time. I leaned forward slightly and tapped the table once. Then again. The rhythm felt familiar. Measured. I understood something now that I had not allowed myself to see before. Daniel did not just remove me today. He had been removing me slowly for 4 years. Since 2020. Since the $2.3 million failure. That was when he stopped treating me as a partner. That was when he started treating me as an obstacle. I had seen the signs. The delayed reports. The changed tone. The absence of my name in presentations. I chose not to confront it. That was my mistake. I thought time would correct it. It never does. I exhaled slowly and picked up the menu. I did not read it. Just held it. The waitress approached a moment later. "What can I get you?" she asked. "Another coffee," I said. "Black." She nodded and poured it without writing anything down. You passing through? She asked. Something like that, I said. She looked at me for a second longer than necessary, then stepped away. I lifted the cup and took a sip. Still bitter. Still sharp. It grounded me. I checked my phone again. 4:34 p.m. 11 minutes since execution began. Enough time for disruption to spread. Not enough for full collapse. My mind moved through the structure again. Vendors tied to accounts. Accounts tied to ownership. Ownership now reassigned. That meant payments would fail. Confirmations would stop. Services would pause. It would not be immediate chaos. It would be confusion first, then realization, then panic. I set the cup down slowly. The sound of ceramic against the table was soft, controlled. I felt something shift again inside me. Not anger, not regret, recognition. This was never about the wedding. That was the surface. This was about erasure, about removing me from the narrative entirely, from the story of what he built, what we built. I leaned back and looked out the window again. The sunlight had shifted, slightly dimmer now, shadows longer. Time was moving. That mattered. Everything now was timing. I rested my hands together on the table, fingers interlocked, still steady, still controlled. I did not feel the need to rush. That surprised me. Most people would feel urgency now, pressure. I did not. The sequence was already moving. My role was no longer to initiate. It was to observe, to confirm. I picked up the phone again. The screen lit up instantly. A new message appeared. Same unknown number. No name. No hesitation. I opened it. The words were simple, direct. No explanation. Catering contract terminated at 4:33 p.m. Deposit of $480,000 voided. Event flagged for non-payment. In 2016, I sat with my daughter Emily on a beach in Santa Monica, and I remember the smell of salt and sunscreen as she leaned against my shoulder and said she trusted me more than anyone in the world. I pushed the diner door open at 4:36 p.m. and stepped back into the heat. The air felt heavier now, thicker. I walked straight to my car and got inside. The leather seat burned through the fabric of my suit. I started the engine without hesitation. I drove exactly 2.1 miles back toward the venue. Not to enter. Not yet. To position myself. I turned onto a side street behind the main building. A narrow lane. Barely enough space for 2 cars. The smell changed again. Trash bins. Damp cardboard. Faint sweetness from leftover food. I parked near a service entrance. The metal door was slightly open. I could hear voices inside. Raised. Urgent. I stepped out and moved closer. Slowly. Controlled. The sound became clearer. Not music anymore. Not celebration. This was different. I stopped just outside the door. The metal felt cold under my fingers. I did not push it open. I listened. What do you mean the payment failed? A voice snapped. Daniel. Sharp. Tense. I told you everything was covered. Another voice answered. Male. Nervous. It was covered 30 minutes ago. The account shows 0 available balance now. Daniel's voice came back. Louder this time. That is not possible. There was 12.4 million in that account. A pause. Then footsteps. Fast. Pacing. Call the bank again, Daniel said. Tell them to fix it. The other voice hesitated. We already called. They said the account ownership changed at 4:19 p.m. Silence. 3 seconds. Then Daniel again. Lower now. Controlled. Ownership does not just change, he said. Not without authorization. Another voice joined. Female this time. Calm. Too calm. Daniel, the vendors are pulling out. Catering already left. They took the $480,000 deposit with them. Daniel exhaled sharply. I could hear it through the door. Listen to me, he said. We built this company. Every dollar. Every contract. It is mine. Now. The man responded quickly. That is not what the filings show. There is a controlling shareholder listed. 62%. A longer silence this time. Heavy. Then Daniel spoke again. Slower. Measured. That old structure was never updated, he said. It does not matter anymore. The woman's voice cut in again. It matters now. The system recognizes it. Everything is tied to that ownership. Daniel's tone shifted again. Frustration breaking through. He was supposed to be out, he said. I removed him from everything 4 years ago. Since 2020. After that loss. He had no control. The man answered quietly. You removed him from visibility. Not from ownership. I felt something settle inside me. Not shock. Not anger. Confirmation. Clear. Final. Daniel continued. Faster now. Less controlled. I did what I had to do, he said. The bank would not approve the $2.3 million loan. I had to restructure. I had to move him out. I needed full control. The woman responded. You needed the appearance of control. That is not the same thing. Another pause. Then Daniel again. Lower. Almost a whisper now. He was holding everything back, he said. Every decision. Every move. I needed to be the one in charge. I needed people to see me as the one who built this. The man spoke again. And now he is back in the system. With 62%. That means every account, every contract, every vendor answers to him again. Silence filled the space. Heavy. Final. I stepped back from the door slowly. My hand released the metal. The air outside felt different now. Lighter. Clearer. I walked back toward my car without rushing. The gravel under my shoes sounded steady. Controlled. I opened the door and sat down. My hands rested on the steering wheel again. Calm. Still. I understood everything now. This was never about removing me financially. It was about removing me from the story, from the narrative, from the identity he wanted to build. But he never completed the structure. He never closed the loop. That was the flaw. I picked up my phone and opened Marcus's contact again. My thumb hovered for half a second. Then I pressed call. He answered immediately. Yes, he said. Final phase, I said. No hesitation. No explanation. I ended the call before he could respond. Then I turned the key fully, shifted into drive, and accelerated straight out of the alley toward the front entrance of the venue without slowing down. In 2009, I stood with my friend Harold Bennett outside a courthouse, and I remember the sharp smell of rain on concrete as he told me, control is quiet until it is absolute. I turned into the front driveway of the venue at 4:41 p.m. The tires rolled over smooth pavement this time. No gravel. No noise. Everything looked unchanged from a distance. White tents still standing. Chairs still aligned in rows. But something felt off immediately. The music had stopped. Completely. I stepped out of the car and closed the door slowly. The air carried a different smell now. Not roses. Not food. Something stale. Something interrupted. I walked toward the entrance without hesitation. Two staff members stood frozen near the doors. One held a tablet. The other stared at his phone. Neither stopped me. That was new. That told me everything had shifted. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The temperature dropped instantly. At least 10 degrees cooler. The air conditioning still worked. But the room felt hollow. Sound traveled differently. Echoed slightly. The guests were still seated. Around 140 of them. But no one spoke. No music. No movement. Just quiet tension. I walked down the center aisle slowly. My shoes made a soft sound against the floor. Heads turned. One by one. Not recognition. Not yet. Just awareness. I kept walking. Straight toward the front. Daniel stood near the altar. His posture was different now. Shoulders tight. Jaw clenched. He saw me immediately. His eyes locked onto mine. I did not stop. I did not slow down. Emily stood beside him. Her hands were clasped tightly. Her face pale. I reached the front and stopped exactly 6 feet away. Close enough to see everything clearly. Far enough to control the space. Daniel spoke first. His voice sharp. Controlled. You should not be here, he said. I held his gaze. That decision is no longer yours, I said. He took one step forward. You do not understand what is happening, he said. I tilted my head slightly. I understand it completely, I said. Emily stepped forward suddenly. Her voice lower. Uncertain now. Dad, please. This is not the time, she said. I looked at her for a moment. Just a moment. It became the time at 4:11 p.m., I said. Daniel's expression shifted. Just slightly. That was enough. He turned toward one of the staff. Fix this, he said. Call whoever you need. The staff member hesitated, then spoke quietly. We already called, he said. They said the authority changed. Daniel turned back to me. Anger breaking through now. You think you can walk in here and take control? He said. I did not raise my voice. I never lost it, I said. A murmur moved through the guests. Soft. Uncertain. Emily looked between us. Her breathing uneven now. What are you talking about? She asked. I shifted my focus back to Daniel. Tell her, I said. He did not respond. Not immediately. His silence said more than words. I watched his face carefully. The calculation. The hesitation. The realization. It was all there. Say it, I said. He exhaled sharply. This is not your concern anymore, he said. I stepped forward half a step. Enough to change the distance. Enough to shift the balance. It is entirely my concern, I said. Every dollar in this room answers to me. The silence deepened. He laughed once. Short. Forced. You are too late, he said. Everything is already in place. I shook my head slightly. No, I said. Everything was already in place before you understood it. Emily's voice cut through again. Softer now. Almost breaking. Daniel, what is he talking about? She asked. He did not answer her. Not directly. That was the moment. That was the shift. I felt it clearly. This was no longer about control. It was about truth. About what had been hidden. About what had been removed. I looked at Emily again. Really looked this time. The doubt in her eyes. The uncertainty. That had not been there before. I spoke slowly. Clearly. Ask him who funded the company, I said. Ask him what happened in 2020. Daniel stepped forward again. Closer now. Enough, he said. This is over. I held his gaze. Steady. Unmoved. It started 19 years ago, I said. And it does not end the way you planned. The room remained silent. Every guest watching now. Waiting. Emily turned toward him fully. Her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel, tell me the truth, she said. He did not answer. Not right away. And in that silence, I understood something that changed everything. This was not just about what he took from me. This was about what he had taken from her as well. In 2011, I stood in my office with my colleague Sarah Whitman, and I remember the sharp smell of ink and fresh paper as she told me, people don't fight for money. They fight for what it represents. I stepped out of the main hall at 4:46 p.m. and moved into the side corridor. The air felt colder here, at least 12 degrees lower. The smell shifted again. Cleaning chemicals, polished wood, something sterile. The noise from the main room faded behind me. Only distant voices now. Muffled. Broken. I walked toward a small service lounge at the end of the hall. The door was half open. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The room was empty except for a long table and 2 chairs. A tray of untouched glasses sat in the corner. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. The silence felt complete. I placed both hands on the table and leaned forward slightly. My reflection stared back at me from the polished surface. Calm. Unshaken. I checked my phone. 4:47 p.m. 6 minutes since I entered the venue. Enough time for confrontation. Not enough for resolution. I replayed Daniel's face in my mind. The shift. The crack in his certainty. That mattered. That was where control changed hands. This was no longer about exposure. This was about consequence. I straightened up and walked back toward the main hall. The corridor felt longer now. The air heavier. When I pushed the door open again, the room had changed. The guests were no longer seated quietly. They were standing now. Groups forming. Voices rising. Confusion spreading. The structure was breaking. I stepped forward again. Same path. Same pace. Daniel stood in the center of it all. His posture different now. Not controlled. Not composed. Reactive. He saw me immediately. Again. You think this proves something? He said. His voice louder now. Edged. I stopped 3 feet closer than before. It proves everything, I said. He shook his head sharply. No, he said. It proves nothing. You had money. That is all. I tilted my head slightly. Money built the structure, I said. Ownership defines who controls it. He stepped closer, matching my distance now. I built the company, he said. I made the decisions. I took the risks. I held his gaze. You used the foundation I provided. I said, without it, there is nothing here. Emily stepped between us suddenly. Her voice unsteady. Stop, she said. Both of you. I looked at her. Really looked. The certainty from earlier was gone. Replaced by something else. Doubt. Fear. Emily, I said quietly. Ask him what he removed in 2020. Daniel's voice cut in immediately. That has nothing to do with this, he said. She turned toward him. It has everything to do with this, she said. He hesitated. Just long enough. We restructured, he said. That is all. I shook my head slowly. You concealed, I said. You removed visibility. Not ownership. His jaw tightened. You were holding everything back, he said. Every decision took twice as long because of you. I nodded once. Because I protected what was already built, I said. You tried to replace it without understanding it. A guest near the front spoke up suddenly. Older man. Gray suit. Is this about ownership? He asked. Daniel turned toward him. This is a private matter, he said. The man did not move. You invited 150 people into this, he said. It stopped being private. The room shifted again. Attention focused. Not scattered anymore. Directed. I felt it clearly. The balance had moved. Daniel exhaled sharply and ran a hand through his hair. This is temporary, he said. We will fix the accounts. We will restore everything. I watched him carefully. The words were there. The confidence was not. No, I said. You will not. He turned back to me. You think freezing accounts gives you control? He said. I shook my head slightly. Control was never in the accounts, I said. It was in the ownership. Emily looked between us again. Her voice softer now. What happens now? She asked. I did not answer immediately. I let the question sit. Let it settle in the room. Then I spoke. Now the structure reflects reality, I said. Daniel laughed once. Short. Hollow. Reality, he said. You lost your place here years ago. I felt the words pass through me without impact. That told me everything. No, I said. You removed me from your version of it. The silence returned. He looked at me for a long moment. Measuring. Calculating. Then something changed in his expression. Not anger. Not fear. Recognition. He understood now. Not partially. Completely. That was the shift. That was the point of no return. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone again. I did not look at the screen. I did not check for messages. I opened the secure file Marcus had prepared. Final authorization. One step remaining. I understood something clearly in that moment. This was never about winning. It was about restoring alignment. About removing the illusion that had replaced structure. About forcing reality back into place. I tapped the screen once. Then again. Confirmed the final transfer. And in that moment, I permanently dissolved Daniel Brooks' authority across every active account, contract, and vendor tied to the company. In 2005, I stood with my former partner Michael Grant in a warehouse in Dallas, and I remember the thick smell of metal and dust as he told me, "You never really lose control. You just forget where it is." I stepped out of the main hall at 4:52 p.m. and moved into the open courtyard behind the venue. The air felt warmer here, at least 85 degrees now. The sunlight hit the stone floor hard, bright, almost blinding. The smell changed again. Faint perfume from guests, mixed with dry grass and heat. I could hear voices spilling out from inside. Louder now. Disorganized. The structure had fully broken. I walked slowly toward a bench near the edge of the courtyard. It was empty. No one followed me. That told me something important. I was no longer the focus of confusion. I was the source of it. I sat down carefully. The stone felt warm through my suit. I rested my hands on my knees and looked straight ahead. The fountain in the center of the courtyard trickled quietly. Water hitting water. Consistent. Unchanged. I checked my phone. 4:53 p.m. 34 minutes since everything started. Enough time for total collapse. Not enough for recovery. I did not need to look inside to know what was happening. Vendors leaving. Payments failing. Contracts dissolving. I had seen it before. Many times. But never like this. Never this close. I leaned forward slightly and exhaled slowly. My breathing remained steady. That mattered. I listened to the sounds behind me. Footsteps. Quick. Uneven. Then a voice. Richard, Emily said. I did not turn immediately. I let her stand there for a second. Then I looked up at her. Her face had changed. Completely. The certainty from earlier was gone. Replaced by something else. Awareness. What did you do? She asked. Her voice was lower now. Not accusatory. Searching. I held her gaze. I corrected the structure, I said. She shook her head slightly. Everything is falling apart inside, she said. I nodded once. It was already falling apart, I said. You just could not see it yet. She took a step closer. Daniel says this is temporary, she said. I watched her carefully. He would say that, I said. She hesitated, then asked the question that mattered. Is it? I leaned back slightly against the bench. The stone felt solid. Grounded. No, I said. Silence settled between us. Not heavy, just clear. She looked down at her hands. Then back at me. Why did you not tell me? She asked. I studied her face for a moment. The same face I had seen for 32 years. The same eyes. But something had shifted. I tried, I said. You chose a different version of events. She closed her eyes briefly. Just 1 second. Then opened them again. I believed him, she said. I nodded slowly. I know, I said. Another silence. Shorter this time. More focused. What happens now? She asked again. I did not answer immediately. I let the question sit. Let it settle into the reality around us. Now the truth becomes visible, I said. Behind her, I could see movement through the glass doors. Guests leaving. Some quickly, some slowly. Conversations breaking into fragments. The event was over, even if no one had said it out loud yet. Emily turned slightly and looked back toward the hall. Her shoulders dropped. Just a fraction. Then she looked back at me. He said you were holding everything back, she said. I tilted my head slightly. I was holding everything together, I said. She absorbed that. Quietly, carefully. I could see the shift happening. Not dramatic, not immediate, but real. She stepped closer again, now only 2 feet away. The $2.3 million, she said. Was that when this started? I nodded once. That was when he decided control mattered more than structure, I said. She took that in. Slowly, I watched her process it. The timeline, the decisions, the omissions. It all began to align for her. I could see it in her expression, piece by piece. And the $18.7 million, she said quietly. That was all yours. I did not correct her. I clarified. It was ours, I said, until he decided it was only his. She looked away again, toward the fountain this time. The water continued to fall at the same pace, unchanged by anything around it. I thought this was my day, she said. I did not respond immediately. That statement carried more weight than anything else. I watched her carefully, the realization forming. Not about money, not about contracts, about something else, something deeper. She turned back toward me slowly. This was never about the wedding, she said. I held her gaze. Steady, calm. She nodded once, almost to herself. Then she stepped back, just slightly, enough to create distance. I remained seated, unmoved. I understood something in that moment that changed everything for me. This was not the end of a conflict. It was the beginning of a correction, not just of ownership, but of perception, of narrative, of truth. And I realized that what had just been taken from Daniel was not only control, but the version of reality he had built for both of us. In 2013, I stood with my late wife Margaret in our kitchen, and I remember the soft smell of cinnamon from the pie she baked as she told me, "Family is not what you build for them. It is what they choose to protect." I left the courtyard at 4:58 p.m. and walked toward the parking lot again. The air felt cooler now. The sun had dropped lower. Shadows stretched longer across the pavement. The smell of flowers had faded, replaced by something neutral, almost empty. I reached my car and opened the door slowly. The leather was no longer hot, just warm. I sat down and closed the door behind me. The silence inside felt complete. No voices, no echoes, just stillness. I rested my hands on the steering wheel and looked straight ahead. Cars were leaving the venue now, one by one. No music followed them. No celebration. Just quiet departure. I checked my phone. 5:01 p.m. 50 minutes since everything began. Enough time for truth to settle. Not enough for anyone to fully understand it. I leaned back slightly and exhaled slowly. My body felt lighter now. Not relieved, just aligned. I had not raised my voice once. I had not argued. I had not forced anything. I simply restored what already existed. That was the difference. I thought about Daniel, about the way he stood there. The way certainty left his face. Not because I took something from him, because I revealed something he never controlled. That mattered. I turned my head slightly and looked back toward the venue. Emily stood near the entrance now, alone, not moving, watching the last of the guests leave. I did not approach her. Not yet. Some realizations need distance. Some truths need silence to take root. I understood that now more than ever. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the envelope again. The same one I had carried in at 4:07 p.m. Still intact, still unopened. I placed it on the dashboard and looked at it for a moment. The $250,000 check inside no longer meant what it did this morning. It was never about the amount. It was about intention, about recognition, about connection. And those things cannot be written on paper. I stepped out of the car again and closed the door behind me. The air felt calm, almost still. I walked slowly across the lot toward her. Each step measured, not rushed. She turned slightly as I approached. Her eyes met mine. No anger now, no confusion, just understanding beginning to form. "Is it all gone?" she asked quietly. I stopped a few feet away. "No," I said. "Only the illusion is gone." She absorbed that, slowly, then nodded once. "I thought today was about starting something," she said. I looked at her carefully. It still can be, I said. Just not the way you planned. She looked down at her hands again, then back at me. I did not see it, she said. I nodded. Most people do not, I said. Silence settled between us again. Not uncomfortable, just real. The kind of silence that does not need to be filled. I reached into the envelope and pulled out the check. I held it for a second, then folded it once. Clean. Precise. I handed it to her without saying anything else. She took it slowly. Her fingers brushed mine for just a second. Then she held it close. Not looking at the number, just holding it. That told me everything. I stepped back slightly and turned toward my car again. I did not need to stay. Not anymore. The structure had been restored. The truth had been revealed. What came next was not mine to control. I opened the door and sat down one final time. The engine started smoothly. The sound steady. Familiar. I placed my hands on the wheel and looked forward. The road ahead was clear. No traffic. No obstacles. Just distance. I drove forward slowly at first, then steadily, leaving the venue behind without looking back. Because I understood something now that I had not fully accepted before. Control is not about holding on. It is about knowing when to let go of what was never truly yours. Power does not come from ownership alone. It comes from understanding what ownership actually means. And in the end, the truth does not destroy what is real. It only removes what was pretending to be.